Ladies and gentlemen, don't wait for the perfect time, become the force that creates it. The world belongs to those who move while others pause, who act while others plan, who rise while others sleep. Execution isn't a skill, it's a decision. There comes a moment in every life where hesitation costs more than failure, where standing still becomes more dangerous than taking the wrong step. And if you feel that moment pressing on your chest, if you hear that whisper in your mind that says move now or remain the same forever, then you are standing at the doorway of your evolution. And the key is this: push yourself to take action. Not tomorrow, not next week, now, because nothing changes until you do. You can read every book, listen to every podcast, gather all the strategies and information in the world, but until you take raw action, until you get uncomfortable, until you throw yourself into the fire of doing, your life will remain a blueprint that was never built. You don't need more motivation, you need to stop waiting for perfect conditions. The perfect moment doesn't exist, the path won't always be clear, fear won't magically vanish, and courage, it's not something you find, it's something you create through movement. The longer you wait to act, the louder your doubts will become, and the more powerful your excuses will grow, but action silences doubt. Action crushes fear, action builds momentum. You want confidence? Take action. You want clarity? Take action. You want power? Move toward the thing that scares you and do it anyway. Every successful person you admire got there by pushing themselves through resistance. They didn't feel ready, they didn't have all the answers, but they moved, they acted, they failed, they adjusted, they acted again. And that is the difference between the dreamers and the doers. The dreamers are waiting for the stars to align, the doers get up and align themselves. You must decide which one you'll be, because no one is coming to push you, no one is going to force you to rise. This is on you. This is your war to win. The world doesn't hand out rewards for intentions, it rewards execution. And yes, it's going to be uncomfortable, you're going to sweat, you're going to doubt, you're going to want to quit. But if you can push yourself in those moments, if you can act when it's hard, when it's inconvenient, when your mind screams not today, that's when the transformation happens. That's where strength is born. That's how you begin to rewrite the story of your life. You don't become powerful by wishing, you become powerful by facing resistance and pushing through it. Most people live their entire lives in the waiting room of their dreams, telling themselves someday, lying to themselves with the illusion of later. But later becomes never, and someday becomes regret. Do not become one of them. You have something inside you that's screaming to be expressed. You have potential that will die with you unless you act. Every day you delay is a day you betray that version of you that could have been. So ask yourself, what do I need to do today that I've been avoiding? What conversation, what commitment, what leap? And then push yourself to take it. Push yourself not for the world but for you, for the version of you that's tired of being stuck, for the version of you that knows you're capable of more, because deep down you already know what needs to be done. You're just waiting for permission. So here it is. Give it to yourself. Get up, move, act, execute. Do it scared, do it imperfectly, but do it anyway. Because action breeds clarity, action builds self-respect, and action is how dreams become real. The truth is, your life can change in an instant, but only if you act. One call, one step, one conversation, one decision. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be real. And you don't need to see the entire staircase, you just need to take the first step with everything you've got. That's how giants are built. That's how legacies are written. That's how you go from wishing to winning. So push yourself, because if you don't, no one will. Push yourself because the future you want is waiting, but it won't wait forever. Push yourself because comfort is a cage and action is the key. You owe it to your dreams to try. You owe it to your pain to turn it into power. And you owe it to yourself to see who you could become if you just stopped hesitating and started building. So don't ask, what if I fail? Ask, what if I never try? Don't ask, how long will it take? Ask, how long will it take? Ask, how far can I go if I never stop? And when fear shows up, and it will look it in the eye and move anyway, because pushing yourself isn't about forcing perfection, it's about refusing to remain in the same place. And every time you act, you cast a vote for the version of yourself you want to become. So make today count. Make this moment count. Make this decision count. Stand up, take a deep breath, and move forward with urgency, because your dreams are not waiting on motivation, they're waiting on you. And the world doesn't need another person with potential, it needs someone with fire, someone with hunger, someone who understands that the only thing standing between where they are and where they want to be is the decision to act. Initiation is the spark, the gateway, the turning point between who you are and who you are destined to become. It's not just starting, it's stepping out of the shadows of hesitation and into the arena of your own becoming. And until you initiate, until you move first, nothing else in your life changes, because the beginning holds the greatest resistance, the heaviest weight, The most seductive lies that whisper, "You're not ready, you're not good enough, you need more time." But that's the illusion, because life doesn't respond to hesitation, it responds to movement, to courage, to the person who dares to act before they feel prepared. And those first steps, shaky and uncertain, carry more power than 1,000 perfect intentions, because they are proof that you are no longer waiting to be chosen, you are choosing yourself, and that decision alone changes your vibration, your direction, your identity, because when you initiate, when you say I begin, I try, I show up regardless, you awaken something dormant inside you, something ancient, something hungry, something that has been buried under fear and excuses for far too long, and suddenly, you're not the same person anymore. You're not just thinking about goals, you're living inside the process, and that shift, that moment where you take the first action, is the most sacred contract you'll ever make with yourself, because it says, I will not die with my potential unused. I will not live trapped in dreams I never had the courage to pursue. And yes, it will be terrifying, because all beginnings are. And yes, it will feel unnatural, because you are rewiring everything about your patterns. But understand this, initiation doesn't require perfection, it only requires courage. It doesn't ask you to be great, it asks you to begin, to rise even when you're shaking, to step forward even when the path is hidden by fog, because that first step is a declaration to the universe that you're no longer available for mediocrity. And when you move like that, with urgency, with heart, with fire, the entire world begins to shift to meet your energy. Doors start opening, people start showing up, resources begin to align, but none of it happens until you initiate, because your life is a mirror, and it will only reflect back the level of action you're willing to take. And if you're waiting for confidence to come first, you will wait forever, because confidence doesn't precede action, it is born from it, grown through repetition, through failure, through showing up again and again. And that's why most people never change, they're addicted to the illusion of readiness. But you must become addicted to movement, addicted to the fire of uncomfortable progress, because once you truly start, something inside you breaks open and the chains of hesitation lose their power. And every time you move again, every time you initiate a second step, and then a third, you reinforce that you are no longer a prisoner of your own fears, you are a creator, an architect of your reality. And the more you move, the more momentum you gain, and the more momentum you gain, the more unstoppable you become, not because you suddenly became fearless, but because you learned to act through fear, to rise through chaos, to build while bleeding. And that is what separates those who live lives of greatness from those who die with regret, the willingness to initiate, even when everything inside you screams not to, because the greatest breakthroughs in life never happen in moments of certainty, they happen in moments of raw, unfiltered courage, when you say I don't know how, but I'm starting anyway, and you throw yourself into the unknown, not recklessly, but faithfully, believing not that the path will be easy, but that it will be worth it. And that kind of beginning, sacred, sweaty, scared but willing, is the birthplace of every empire, every legend, every success story you've ever admired. And now it's your turn, now it's your moment to stop watching, to stop analyzing, to stop preparing endlessly, and simply take that first bold, defiant, magnificent step, because you will never be ready, and the stars will never perfectly align, but the universe responds not to the one who waits, but to the one who initiates, the one who dares to act, who dares to become, who dares to try. And if you do that, if you just begin, you'll realize that the power you've been searching for was never out there, it was always inside, locked behind the door of hesitation, and the key has always been the same: take action now, start, stumble, adapt, rise, repeat. And as you do, you'll look back not with regret, but with pride, because you'll know you did what 99% of people will never do, you pushed yourself to begin, and that changed everything. Momentum is the silent force behind all greatness, the invisible tide that turns small beginnings into unstoppable surges of progress. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks, it doesn't scream for attention, but once it's in motion, once you've fed it through consistent effort, it becomes a roaring current that carries you farther than you ever thought possible. And here's the truth, most people never understand, you don't wait for momentum, you create it, and you create it by pushing through when there's no applause, no results, no external motivation, only the raw grit of doing what needs to be done, every single day, especially when you don't feel like it, because momentum isn't born from inspiration, it's born from repetition, from doing the hard thing over and over, until the resistance begins to break, until the weight begins to shift, until what was once unbearable becomes part of your rhythm. And when that rhythm sets in, everything changes. Discipline becomes easier, focus sharpens, doors open, and progress compounds. But it never starts that way, because the beginning is always heavy. The beginning always tests your resolve, and that's why so few people ever build momentum. They quit during the resistance. They turn back when the climb gets steep, not realizing that the struggle is the sculptor of strength, not realizing that each push forward, each uncomfortable repetition, is building the very force that will later make the process feel effortless. And once you get past that wall, once you keep moving despite the pain, the fatigue, the silence, something powerful happens. You stop needing to force yourself, because momentum begins to carry you. It begins to work with you, and suddenly you're no longer pushing forward. You're being pulled by the energy you built through consistency. But don't get it twisted. Momentum is earned, not given. It is the reward for those who endure the dull days, who master the mundane, who do the work without needing a reason, because that's how warriors are made, in the unseen hours, in the lonely mornings, in the moments when quitting looks easier than continuing. And if you can hold the line in those moments, if you can keep showing up when no one's watching, when the voice in your head tells you it's not working, that it's too hard, that you're not good enough, that's when momentum quietly begins to grow behind you like a wave gathering speed. And every time you move, you feed it. Every time you show up, you stack energy behind you. And that stack becomes power. It becomes leverage. It becomes the edge that separates the average from the elite. Because once you've built momentum, your pace becomes your advantage. Your motion becomes your protection. Your consistency becomes your weapon. And while others are still trying to start, you're already miles ahead. Not because you're more talented, not because you're lucky, but because you kept going when it didn't make sense, when it didn't feel good, when there was no guarantee. And that kind of motion is rare. It's dangerous. It's feared by those who lack discipline, because once momentum is on your side, the game changes. Success begins to chase you, opportunities multiply, and your past becomes irrelevant, because momentum makes up for what you lack in talent, what you lack in resources, what you lack in certainty. And suddenly people start asking how you did it, how you transformed, how you made it look so easy. But they didn't see the early grind, the lonely nights, the silent battles. They didn't see you when you had every excuse to stop and didn't. And that's why this matters, because if you want to live the life most people never will, you must be willing to do what most people never do. Build momentum when it feels like nothing is working, and guard it like your life depends on it, because once it slips, it takes twice as much energy to get it back. And that's the trap. Most people start, stop, and they never understand why they stay stuck. But the ones who break through, who rise to greatness, they know the secret. Don't stop when it's hard. Don't pause when it's slow. Accelerate, move harder, push faster, lean in when your mind begs you to lean out, because momentum feeds on commitment, and the more you commit, the more unstoppable you become. And over time, this isn't just about success, it's about identity, because you become someone who finishes what they start, someone who doesn't flinch in discomfort, someone who turns pressure into power. And that identity, built brick by brick through repeated action, becomes your armor, your code, your advantage in a world addicted to instant gratification. So don't underestimate the power of motion. Don't fall for the lie that you need to be inspired to act. Understand that action creates inspiration, not the other way around. And once you understand that, you'll never wait for motivation again. You'll wake up and move. You'll do the hard thing first. You'll embrace the grind, because you know every small effort today is feeding the behind you, the momentum that will later make the impossible feel routine. And the more you move, the more natural it becomes, until you look back and realize you are no longer the person who struggled to start. You are the one others look to, for pace, for power, for example. And you got there not by chance, not by shortcut, but by building momentum, through relentless repetition, and refusing to stop, even when everything told you to. And that decision, that fire, that refusal to quit, is the reason you became a force to be reckoned with. Discomfort is not your enemy, it's your invitation, your mentor, your proving ground. And the sooner you understand that everything you want, every dream you've been holding in the quiet of your mind, exists on the other side of pain, the faster you will rise, because discomfort is not a curse, it is the currency you pay to become who you were always meant to be. And yet most people run from it, they dodge it, sedated by comfort, addicted to ease, paralyzed by the thought of inconvenience, and that's why they never grow, never elevate, never awaken their true potential, because growth demands pain, and the greatest version of you will not come forth while you're warm, safe, and satisfied. It will rise from the ashes of struggle, from the fire of endurance, from the chaos of everything uncomfortable. And if you want to build something legendary, whether it's a body, a business, a legacy, a mindset, you must stop fearing the hard path and start choosing it. You must develop a savage love for the grind, for the early mornings when your body screams for sleep, for the days when your mind tries to sell you the comfort of quitting, because those moments of discomfort are not setbacks, they are sacred tests, designed to see if you're worthy of your own potential, and if you fail to face them, if you tap out every time it gets hard, then you'll never know who you really are. But if you lean into the burn, if you train your nervous system to crave that resistance, something miraculous happens. Your threshold expands, your capacity multiplies, your spirit hardens like steel under pressure, and you stop being controlled by fear and start commanding it, using it as fuel, as focus, because discomfort isn't there to break you, it's there to build you, and every time you face it, you level up, you evolve, you sharpen your edge, and that edge becomes your advantage in a world that's gone soft, that's lost its hunger, a world that wants results without sweat, trophies without trials, but not you, not the you who decides today to become unshakable, unbreakable, unrelenting, because discomfort is the only place where real change happens, where old identities die, and new ones are born, and if you can learn to operate inside that pain, to find peace inside the pressure, to feel the hurt and keep going anyway, then you've unlocked the ultimate power, the ability to keep moving when everything in you screams to stop, and that's what separates beasts from the broken, winners from wishers, the remembered from the forgotten, because the ones who rise in life are not the ones who had the most talent, the best circumstances, or the loudest support, they are the ones who were willing to hurt for it, to grind when it was thankless, to push when it was lonely, to bleed when no one was watching, and still say, this is where I'm supposed to be, and that mindset, that warrior's perspective, rewires your reality, because you stop reacting to adversity and start absorbing it, transforming it, wielding it like a weapon, and suddenly you're no longer afraid of being uncomfortable, you're afraid of being ordinary, of settling, of looking back with regret, knowing you had more inside you, and that fear becomes your fuel, it becomes your clarity, it becomes the voice inside you that says, if I want to live uncommon, I must suffer uncommon things, and that kind of thinking, that kind of living, will turn you into a savage in the best way, disciplined, dangerous, decisive, and everything around you begins to change, because you changed, because you stopped resisting the path of pain, and instead embraced it, loved it, welcomed it like an old friend, and when you do that, discomfort loses its grip on you, and you become the storm, the fire, the unstoppable force that nothing can intimidate, because you've already been through hell, you've already carried the weight, and you no longer need it to be easy, you just need it to be worth it, and that is the mindset that builds empires, that creates legends, that makes history, not from comfort, but from discomfort, mastered, owned, respected, and if you're ready to become that person, then stop waiting for permission, and start running toward the pain, because that's where your power lives, that's where the future version of you is being forged, and every second you delay is another second you remain a stranger to your greatness, so step into it now, breathe it in, let it break you, let it forge you, and don't flinch, because discomfort isn't the end, it's the door. Execution is the final line that separates the dreamers from the doers, the planners from the performers, the talkers from the titans, and until you understand this truth, your goals will remain illusions. You can visualize all you want, strategize for years, write in journals, speak affirmations, but if you do not execute, if you do not act with unwavering force and relentless follow-through, then none of it will matter, because execution is the currency of results, and everything you've imagined for your life is waiting behind one simple question: will you do it, or will you just think about doing it? And here's the brutal reality: most people live and die in the land of intention, trapped in the cycle of planning and overthinking, paralyzed by the illusion of perfection, constantly preparing but never pulling the trigger, and they call that being cautious, they call that being smart, but the truth is they are scared, they're scared to fail, scared to be judged, scared of not being good enough, and so they build beautiful blueprints and take zero action, and meanwhile the world doesn't reward thoughts, it doesn't reward potential, it rewards execution, and that's why the mediocre rise while the the gifted stay stuck, because mediocre people execute with confidence while gifted people hesitate with doubt. And the moment you stop waiting for things to be perfect, for the timing to feel right, for the fear to disappear, that is the moment you'll take the first real step toward power, because action is clarity, and in action you learn faster, grow faster, fail faster, adapt faster, and ultimately win faster, because it's not about doing it flawlessly, it's about doing it repeatedly. And if you're not willing to execute with urgency, with focus, with pain and mess and chaos all around you, then you are not ready for the greatness you say you want, because execution requires hunger, not comfort. It demands decisiveness when you feel uncertainty, courage when you feel pressure, and action when there is no guarantee. And this is where the divide happens, when people are tested in the trenches, when it's not glamorous, when it's not easy, when all the theory and self-help talk no longer matter, and it's just you and the weight of your own excuses. And in that moment, only execution counts, only action will rescue you, only forward movement can change your life, because nothing you say matters if you don't back it up with doing, and nothing you believe about yourself is true until it's proven through action, and all the potential inside you is just wasted talent unless it's delivered through your habits, your hustle, your daily discipline. And if you don't rise up and move, if you don't take the shot, make the call, hit the gym, launch the product, speak the truth, finish the task, then don't expect your life to change, because the universe doesn't bend for those who hesitate, it moves for those who move first. And that's the mindset you must adopt. Do first, adjust later, because waiting for the perfect moment is the fastest route to mediocrity. And if you want to step into your greatness, you must be willing to take messy, imperfect, immediate, relentless action. And once you start doing that, everything begins to shift. Your confidence grows, your momentum builds, your identity transforms from a thinker into a doer, from a dreamer into a warrior, from someone who talks about goals to someone who dominates them, because execution changes how you see yourself, how the world sees you, and how opportunity responds to you. And when you commit to execution as a lifestyle, not as a reaction to motivation, not as a temporary burst, but as a non-negotiable standard, then your days begin to compound with power, and suddenly success is no longer something you chase, it becomes something you command, because you show up whether you feel like it or not, you grind whether there's an audience or not, you finish the job whether it's comfortable or not. And that kind of execution, that brutal consistency, is what builds legacy, not talent, not charisma, not luck, just raw, focused, deliberate execution, again and again, until the world can no longer ignore the force you've become. And you must understand, every second you delay is a second someone else is executing, someone else is getting sharper, faster, closer. And if you want to win in life, you must out-execute them, not with flash, not with tricks, but with discipline, with mastery of your time, your focus, your energy, and your decisions. And if you can control those four things, you become unstoppable, because execution is about ownership, owning your outcomes, owning your schedule, owning your weaknesses, and still moving forward. And that level of ownership turns your life into a weapon, a machine, a mission, because now you're no longer interested in hype, you're married to results, and you don't care who's watching, who's supporting, who's doubting, because you're locked in on the work, on the execution, and everything else becomes noise. So stop waiting, stop planning, stop dreaming without movement. Get up, get ruthless, and execute like your legacy depends on it, because it does. And the world doesn't need more people with good ideas, it needs more people who do what they say, who act without apology, who don't flinch under pressure, and don't need permission to build an empire, because in the end, the ones who execute relentlessly are the ones who are remembered, respected, and unstoppable. Urgency is not panic, it's presence, it's precision, it's the unmistakable energy of someone who knows the clock is ticking and the window of opportunity is shrinking. And if you don't live with urgency, you will die in the waiting room of someday, because life does not wait for the hesitant, the casual, or the uncommitted. It moves for the one who moves fast, moves with purpose, moves like they know every second matters, because the truth is brutal and beautiful. You are running out of time, and every day you delay is a day you never get back, a day your future self is robbed of progress, power, and possibility. And while you sit there thinking about taking action, debating whether you're ready, someone else is doing it, building it, becoming it. And that's why urgency isn't about rushing, it's about respecting the opportunity, respecting your calling, and respecting the brutal fact that you do not have forever, you have now, and what you do with now determines everything that comes next, because every delay becomes a detour, every excuse becomes a chain, and every moment you hesitate is another moment your dreams drift further from your reach. So understand this, urgency is the mindset of the uncommon, the rare few who refuse to live in regret, who treat time like gold and act like their legacy is on the line every single day, because it is. And they wake up with fire, not fear, with focus, not fantasy. And they don't wait for conditions to be perfect, they create progress inside the storm. They execute while others plan, they move when others pause, and that's what separates the impactful from the invisible, the fulfilled from the frustrated, because urgency is the oxygen of achievement, and if you don't breathe it in deeply, you will suffocate in mediocrity, watching your goals expire while you keep saying, I'll start tomorrow, but tomorrow is a lie, tomorrow is a thief, and it will rob you blind if you keep handing it your dreams. So burn this into your mind: the time is now, not later, not when you feel ready, not when things are easier, now, because nothing great has ever been built by someone who hesitated at the edge of greatness, and urgency forces you to face that edge, to stare down the resistance, to say, I may be scared, I may be uncertain, but I will not waste this moment. And when you live that way, you start moving like a weapon, like a machine with a mission, and every action carries weight, every hour is sacred, every opportunity is seized, not because you're lucky, but because you acted before it passed you by. And this is the hard truth: there is no guarantee it will come again, no promise that life will give you another chance. So why are you wasting time, scrolling, waiting, overthinking, when you could be executing, building, evolving? Because urgency is the wake-up call that greatness is not automatic, it is earned through intensity, through movement, through bold, unapologetic action taken again and again, while others stall in comfort, and that urgency becomes your competitive advantage, your internal fire that never goes out, because you've wired your mind to understand that life owes you nothing and offers you everything, but only if you move, only if you push, only if you stop making excuses and start making impact. And that doesn't mean you don't rest, it means you rest with discipline, you recover with purpose, because everything you do is now governed by the code of urgency. Do it now or lose it forever, and that kind of mindset shifts everything. It changes how you spend your time, how you speak, how you think, how you act, because you're no longer operating on emotion, you're operating on mission, and that mission doesn't wait for permission, it doesn't care if it's hard, it just moves forward, fast, focused, relentless. And if you want to become legendary, if you want to leave a mark so deep that the world cannot erase it, then urgency must become your identity, not something you feel once in a while, but something you live every single second, because when urgency is in your blood, you don't waste time, you weaponize it, you stretch it, you extract every ounce of potential from it, and you walk through life like every second is sacred, because it is. And when you learn to live like that, you no longer fear missing out, you become the thing others are missing out on, because you're not the one watching anymore, you're the one winning, moving, dominating, and they can't figure out how you're moving so fast, why you're growing so fast, why you're rising so fast. And the answer is simple: you stopped waiting and started living like time was running out, and that mindset will take you further than motivation ever could, because urgency doesn't depend on how you feel, it's driven by what you value. And when you value your future, when you value your mission, when you value your potential, you stop wasting time on distractions, drama, and delay, and you pour your life into what matters, because you finally realize you don't have time to waste being average, not when excellence is within reach, not when greatness is one action away, not when your name, your purpose, your legacy is on the line. And so the decision is yours: you can live like time is abundant and watch your life slip through your fingers, or you can wake up, stand up, rise up, and move like you're on fire, because you are, and the flame will either consume your life or light the path to everything you ever wanted. But you have to choose now, not later, not tomorrow, now. Push yourself to take action, because the clock is ticking, the world is watching, and your destiny is waiting, but it will only bow to one thing: relentless, fearless, immediate movement, now or never.